Hello and welcome to another little bit of Satoshi's news. Today, this is going to be an interview with the whistleblowing midwife known as Victoria Rixon. I'm very much looking forward to this. So before we start, let's do the usual intro. Branch your threads, expand your mind with treechat.ai. All your posts put on chain. Right, let's cue the music.
Satoshi, like a cowboy in the West, riding on the blockchain that they call the very best. 1 million strong, them transactions flying free. Just wait for the Terra node, you'll surely see.
Here we go, Vic. Are you there?
I am. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. So I have to say I'm very much looking forward to this because I heard you talk at a festival and I was blown away by what you were whistleblowing on, because obviously I had no idea. And although we know how corrupt the world is, I was still truly shocked, especially when it comes to midwifery, because it's human nature to just protect children. And these people that we're up against, it's literally in their religion to do everything that is anti-human, that goes against what is natural to protect children, like, caring for the elderly, neglecting the area and neglecting the elderly. You're meant to protect children, so they attack children. It is just horrific. So I think your story, your awakening story, might hit home with a lot of listeners here. So if you could just literally tell everybody from the beginning what happened, that would be a great place to start.
Yeah, wow, thank you. That's an amazing intro, and I sometimes don't realize how powerful this work is and how emotive it really is, and it does ripple through everybody. So, as you know, I'm a midwife. I'm a whistleblower. I don't really like that word. Someone recently said, actually, you're more messenger, and I quite like that. So I will give a couple of people a shout out about that, David and Helen. And basically, I became a midwife after having a beautiful home birth in 2011. He was born at home in my environment with my wishes. No one told me what to do. And I didn't get an element of, and have not had an element of, any trauma in the NHS up until I became a midwife. So I had 3 beautiful births. Yes, 2 of them were hospital births and 1 then a home birth. So I hadn't experienced this birth trauma wording that is now very much prevalent in the birthing world.
Did you have a doula when you were deciding to home birth?
No, I had a midwife from the NHS, 2 midwives, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, and that was in Devon. And I had the most beautiful, profound experience. It was nothing like I'd ever had before. And I birthed my son at home, delivered him myself, and had this it was the most spiritual connection I've ever had. I wish I could bottle it up and show people it. A bit like in Harry Potter when Dumbledore pulls out that memory with a wand. I wish I could do that, because it was nothing like I've ever experienced in my life. Oh, wow. And I became a midwife. So I thought, I can't wait to give that to women. Wow. And I just want to say, I was never wanting to be a midwife. It happened. So I was into sales. I used to I used to knock doors for Sky TV. I was like a proper, quite a rough and rounded sort of woman. I'm not afraid to have a conversation with anybody, which is probably why I can stand up and talk now, because I realized that I had to knock doors to learn rejection and to learn how to be a bit hard and not be so sensitive to rejection or difficult conversations. And I learned a lot about people. So those skills have got me to where I am today. And my mum trained as a midwife. She didn't qualify in the end, but she remembers it being quite toxic as well. So, and that was right back in the early noughties in Scotland. So I became a student. And to be honest, that's when I really, really felt this oppression. But because I was going through a divorce and a separation with my ex-husband, who he's a good man now. He was an amazing man then. We were just not in the right space together. But I went to uni thinking my divorce and my separation is causing this oppression, and I'm not feeling right. And what I hadn't done then, which I do now, I hadn't connected to myself enough to realize that this was really not a good environment. So I was constantly lying to myself because I wasn't being honest with everything. And the bullying was there very early at the uni, amongst lecturers, against students. It was just so toxic. And it's all women.
What were they bullying against?
It was things like if you were too confident, they'd say things like, we want to clip your wings. You couldn't wear a hoodie with the word midwife on it, or because like if you saw like the netball team at Plymouth Uni, they would be like the class of 2017 biology. Yeah. We couldn't have class of midwifery. We weren't allowed to bring any attention to us whatsoever.
Really?
Nope. We weren't allowed hoodies. We weren't allowed anything. We weren't allowed to wear our uniform outside of work. We had to go straight home, get changed, and then go out. It was very, very regimented.
How bizarre.
And what I realized, Tosh, was at that time, why did the paramedics not have that pressure? And why do the nurses not have that much pressure? Because the nurses used to wear hoodies, but we couldn't. And I think I never really understood it then. Obviously, now I realize it's all about that element of control and silencing you.
Well, do you think it actually might be anything to do with the larger agenda at play?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, your voice is silenced the minute you're in that environment, which means you're never going to do it later on, are you? Because it started early.
Yeah, because that's probably one of the most human acts of giving birth that anyone would ever experience. So that would, if you've got this religious agenda to dehumanize the population, then that's something that you would want to suppress, isn't it, really?
Yeah, absolutely. And it starts that early. And you've got to remember that probably about 70% of the students were straight out of school or out of, they're quite young, they're in their 20s, so they could mold them. But when there were a couple of mature students, we were the ones that were a little bit more vocal, like, hang on a minute, you can't do that. We'd had a bit of life experience. Yeah. So, I've worked in River Island. I worked for a hotel as an events manager. I never saw any of this stuff in the normal world of little corporate companies. They were normally really good people.
Yeah, they'd be encouraging.
Yes, but this was the absolute. Yeah, this was the absolute of you were dehumanized. You were devoiced, you were deplatformed the minute you ever went against that system, and it started at uni. And in my first year, my cousin, through marriage, went into labour, and she rang me up and said, "Could you come and help?" And she had a little 3-year-old, and I went into the house, and she was showing signs that she was in labour, but she's quite a silent labourer, and she didn't know she was in labour. I said, "Are you in labour?" She went, "I don't know." Now, she was a little bit early, about 38 weeks, but I got an ambulance. I rang up the ambulance and said, "I've got a lady that's about to have a baby," and they came to get her. It was 2013. We took her to hospital, and when I got there, the manager threw me some scrubs and said, "We haven't got any staff. You're going to have to deliver her." So I'm a student in my first year at this point, and I delivered my cousin's baby. It was absolutely beautiful. She was amazing. I didn't deliver it. She delivered the baby. It's the wrong way around when you say that for a start. And I was then referred to the university and put through a fitness to practice.
Is that some kind of punishment or something?
Yeah. And it's a bit like, well, what did I do wrong? So, I'd shown sort of displays of I was displaying myself as a mature student and had picked up midwifery practice quite quickly because, I was a mum and I'd experienced it. So they wanted to clip my wings. So they put me through this referral that I'd breached rules and that I was unsafe. It was just awful. And it contradicted what words are written in my record of achievement. I've got them. I'll post them underneath this podcast, actually. And it actually says how amazing I was, that I'd practiced safely, that I was working beyond my years of knowledge, and that what a great delivery. And then the next breath, I was through the uni with my wings clipped. Now, when I graduated, that university lecturer, I couldn't bear her by the end. another lecturer said, you're like Marmite. People either love you or hate you. And if they hate you, they'll do anything to bring you down. And if they love you, they'll stand right by you. And it was just that whole toxicity. And then when I entered midwifery, I thought, oh, thank God I'm out of uni and I can just fly. And I did fly in my first year as a band 5. I flew through my preceptorship program, they called it. I wanted to just really mold into the midwife I wanted to be. During my training, I'd picked up the good points I wanted to take on from people, and I left behind those toxic traits of other people that I go, I wouldn't be like that. So I did really, really well, and off I went. And there were a couple of bumps in the road with some things that managers used to say, or, one manager pulled me in and she wanted me to lie to patients. And I absolutely remember kicking off and walking out the door, throwing the keys down and saying, nah, I'm out of here. And I went to the matron and the head of midwifery and said, that is absolutely against the code of practice. I'm not lying to any patients. And she got reprimanded for it, and I never heard anything about it. So all the little incidences are almost a bit isolated. So one here, one there, different member of staff. Excuse me. And then as time went on, I realised it was very unsafe. There was a lot of things going on in midwifery that didn't quite make sense in a humanistic approach. Your guidelines and policies are written and they don't match everybody. I would be on the ward, running a ward as a very junior band 6 midwife, and I would be looking after 18 patients, and they had babies. So there could have been anything up to 25 patients. I mean, how do you run a ward that's busy with doctors in and out all day, antibiotics, observations, breastfeeding, checking pads, checking uteruses? It's not physically possible. So there's always room then for an error. The system creates the error because the staffing is low and then the skills are stressed, and you're then not doing your documentation. So something will slip up somewhere, whether it's you didn't do a drug, or you didn't do an OB, or you didn't do you didn't write there, or you didn't check the resuscitator. And before you know it, you're already being told you're failing every day. And I know what that does to your mental welfare.
Yeah, well, it just generates stress, and it means you can't think straight, and you're not enjoying your job either.
Yeah. And what do? We stay because we've worked 4 years of hard graft. We're in 100 grand's worth of debt. Well, the students now are. I wasn't because I had a bursary, but you're in a lot of debt. You've made it across that finish line. You've got your blue dress, and you're in your ego. And then when your ego starts to subside because your body's dying, you're dying, and you've got nothing left to give, that's when people start going, I don't care what you do to me, I'm going. And I think for me, it was over that period of time, right before COVID, I got pregnant with I fell pregnant with my son, Henry, who you've met. And I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and the care was atrocious. Not from my friends and colleagues that cared for me, the obstetric consultants, the doctors. When you go down the pathway of a midwife, you tend to find it is very compassionate, caring, loving. They want to do the right for you. They want to care for you. But when you add in the element of a consultant into your care, it's a whole different ballgame. It's like eating a sweet and sour sweet.
Okay, why does adding a consultant?
Because they're a doctor and they're running from a different evidence-based Royal College of Gynecology, Royal College of Obstetrics. They're coming from a different angle. So doctors are very, not all of them, but some of them are very unemotional, very harsh. So, when I was pregnant with Henry, I was told you're at risk of stillbirth very, very, very early on. And that just never left me, because I'd gone from having 3 beautiful pregnancies, 3 beautiful births, and having 3 beautiful boys, to almost being knocked off my feet and being punched in the guts. And I was like, what? Like, you say that to other people, you don't say that to me? It was that kind of experience. And I was like, holy hell, I just wasn't prepared for what you've just said to me. So I take full responsibility for that, because that's my trauma. She didn't make me feel that way. I own that. Now, I didn't then. But what it made me realise was that many women go through this. And And I just sit with them in clinic and go, oh, so you've got diabetes? Not, you're under the consultant, they'll deal with your care. I didn't ask these women if they were okay or how they felt about it. And I have a lot of regret for a lot of the practices I adopted because the system didn't allow me to think because it was so busy. It's a bit, I say to my husband, when you're busy all the time and you're busy, you're pottering around the house, you don't stop and think, oh, I must give my mum a ring and check she's all right. And a month's passed. It's that kind of analogy, I would call it. And then when you get home after your shifts, you're so tired that you don't have time to go and pick a book up and learn about evidence. You don't even want to go near it because you're that drained.
Yeah, you just
so then it's time
and live your life, don't you?
Yeah, you just, and you're knackered. You're so tired after your shifts, your 12.5-hour shifts. So anyway, fast forward into
12.5-hour shifts?
Yeah,
What?
with no breaks.
That is, I would say
that is common.
Incompetence on behalf of the manager. That is outrageous.
That is common in nursing and midwifery across the board, though. That there's a little saying, they go, I'm going to treat myself to a wee.
Oh,
because you sometimes wouldn't wee the whole shift. So if I just give you an overview, when you walk in the door at 7:10, you've got to be in handover for 7:30. You then hear the handover for every patient on a piece of paper, or if you're on labour ward, visually on the board, because you only get one patient, usually. You've then got to be allocated a portion of that ward fairly based amongst 2 or 3 colleagues. And then you've got to go away quickly, read all the notes, and then write a plan of the day for when they all need OBS and when they all need antibiotics, when they all need something. And you have to not miss anything. But when you're sat at the desk and the phone's ringing, and then an induction lady's coming out, she said, I'm really, really needing some pain relief. I'll just get your midwife. But then you forget that woman because you've just tried to read your own notes and you've forgotten about her because you're being task overload.
Yeah.
And then when you've done that part, because you're frightened of litigation, you're frightened to miss anything, you've written all your list down, and then the emergency bell goes off. So then you run to a room where a lady's about to have a baby. You haven't introduced yourself to any of your patients, but you've got antibiotics due now. Remember, at 8:00. But then you've got a lady that's about to have a baby in the bath. So then you all rush in and help. And then you're all there together. Then someone's got to ring to labour ward and let them know that we've got a baby delivering on the ward. And if she's high risk, and someone's got to read the notes and check that she's got no other abnormalities or problems, and the scans are all normal. Do you know what I mean? It's fast pace. It's not for everybody. And then you come out and then you go, right, where was I? It's now 9:00. Oh, I've missed 4 sets of OBS and an antibiotic. That baby didn't feed since yesterday. Oh my goodness. And now I've got an induction of labour lady that needs to go to labour ward. So I've got to ring them. And then the doctor comes up and says, can I have the notes for your H-Bay? And you go, yeah, they're in the cupboard. But you've got to give antibiotics for H-Bay, but they take the notes off and you can't find them. It's constant. I could write a book forever about this. It's just a constant conveyor belt.
They don't train you for this when you're doing your midwifery training. I mean, it's from what you're saying, you would need like military style. It's regimented. I mean, and also working 12.5 hours, that's bordering on torture.
Oh, Toshi, I entered that system weighing 62 kilos, right? And running. I used to run and CrossFit. I'd run half marathons. I'd run 10K at least 3 or 4 times a week.
Wow.
By the time I left midwifery, I was the fattest I'd ever been. I was well into the 80 kilos. I was type 1 diabetic, panic attacks, acid reflux, anxiety, depression, sleep issues, on £3,000 worth of drugs a month.
What?
I was a state. It was horrific.
That's cortisol.
Yeah. So if you imagine you're running behind all day and then you go, oh, finally caught up. It's now 2:00. And now you've got to do all your OBS again because they come in 4 hours. So you've got help, but when you've got induction women and you've got high risk women, nobody can do your OBS but you because you're the registrant. But then you've realised the baby in J-Bay hasn't fed since this morning and hasn't pooed since yesterday. So now that's a guideline you've got to follow. So then you've got to remember all the guidelines, and then the guidelines get ratified, and then they get emailed out to you. But in your inbox of 1,027 million unread emails, you've got to find a ratified policy that you didn't read because on your day off it was sent, and then you had 20,000 sent the day after.
Oh my
It's
God.
And then you're getting emails from your education department saying you haven't done your e-learning for the year. Oh, okay. Should I pluck that out my arse and try and find? This is what it was like all the time.
It's almost like they're trying to drive nurses out of midwifery.
Yeah. So midwifery is direct entry. You're not actually a nurse. You're straight midwifery. Now, it used to be that you had to be a nurse and convert for 18 months to midwifery. And a lot of those nurses have some really great skills. But obviously, as women got sicker, and Tess Lovely, who's a midwife, talks about this a lot to me, she said, we didn't need nursing and midwifery in the noughties because women were healthy and pregnancy wasn't a sickness. But as women have become sicker through weight, food, vaccine, medication, we need the nursing element now. But we didn't for a while. So she's really taught me a lot being a midwife for 25 years. But she said, we didn't have to practice like that. So none of us cope with it well. Whereas you young ones are trained to do this regimented work. But when I was training, you only followed your mentor. You never thought like your mentor. You couldn't. So it was only when you walked into the job could you then fully empathize what the job entailed. No one could prepare you for that. So what I started to do was I started to get smart, think smart, plan smart. I'm quite a smart woman. So I had a strategy plan every morning of how I would work my day, and I very rarely missed anything. But it's not the missing that's the worry. It's the what you miss in amongst your task exercises. So how many women do you think I sat with in labour on those wards? None, because I couldn't. So those women that come in to be induced are sat in a bay with other women, crying or moaning and in early labour pain. And that is really painful. And I couldn't sit with them because I didn't have time. So there's tasks for drugs and OBS and litigation avoidance tasks, I call them. But there's no task list for how many women did you hug today that cried? How many women did you sprinkle your beautiful feminine knowledge of being a mother for 18 years and send them on their merry way into the paradise? None. It's not built for that. So in 2021, I put in a grievance because what I was noticing was now I was on insulin, I wasn't eating in a 12-hour day and I was hypoing all the time. And that is a medical emergency. If any patient comes into A&E or into maternity having a hypo, it's a medical emergency. But when it's a medical emergency for a staff member, it's not a medical emergency. It's a problem.
Oh my God.
So on one shift, I had some insulin in the morning. And by 1 or 2 o'clock, I think it was, I got pulled to go to theatre for a cesarean section. And when I was in there, my alarm went off and my blood sugars were dropping. And the arrow indicates how long you've got before you're going to be in a hypo state, which is hypoglycemia. And within 15 minutes, you could be passing out and fitting. And mine was on, it's scary. And they wouldn't let me go for a break because they had no staff.
And this is from someone that used to run 10K 3 or 4 times a week to suddenly being type 1 diabetic and overweight and that is nuts.
Yeah, I know. So I started to put in grievances and said, this if I do something wrong on a shift and miss something, because the evidence from the diabetes.uk website, I think it is, or .org, it states that a type 1 diabetic needs to make more than 180 decisions a day than they did before they were diabetic. So can you imagine me having to think about more than 100 times about my diabetes in a day because of titration of my insulin and do all that work? So I was fearful that I was going to harm someone inadvertently because I wasn't getting a break to stop and think. So I had to put in a grievance to get a break. It was so bad.
Jeepers.
Yeah, and that went on for quite a few years. I think it was about 2 years, and in the end it was 4 grievances in total. You know, my managers didn't even know how to do a risk assessment. It was embarrassing. They didn't know. They kept asking me. And then in my grievance outcome, I got the minutes. I received the minutes, and my manager, who's on a bloody good whack of money, said these words: people who are diabetic can't work on labour ward. I mean, how discriminatory. Awful. And I said, no, that's not fair. I'm a damn good midwife. And actually, it was easier for me to work on labour ward with one patient and be able to have a break than to cover 24 patients and never get a break because you're task overloaded. And I had to argue for it. So that kind of went on for a long period of time. And I was really mentally unwell. I had over 330 days off sick. No, 370 days off sick. So it was almost over a year. And I only qualified in 2017. And that was 2021 onwards. Okay. And then in the February of 2024, I went to work on my last shift and I walked out and I went back for one day and then I was gone and never went back.
And who do you think is responsible for effectively making midwifery like this? Because, you know, it's all by design. It could very easily be fixed with a bit of common sense.
Absolutely. There is no common sense in midwifery. None of it. And I think what we all have to look at are things like the WHO, the WEF, the Agenda 30. But what people also need to be looking at, which people don't think is really profound, is go back and look over the Book of Demonology, you know, right back into the 15, 16, 1700s of the witch trials. Yeah. They were to not only to obliterate what they thought witches were, but it was to obliterate women's voices, women's connection to birth. And if you were found to be a woman practicing anything woo-woo, you were a witch and you were murdered. And over 55,000 women and men and children were obliterated in this country and Europe through those eras. It was horrendous. It's really, really, really opened my eyes into a behavioural and a characteristic of how we've got to where we've got to today. And midwifery, the way that they witch hunt you, is no different to those trials where women all turn on each other. And during that era, women, if you were over a certain age and you were middle-aged in your 30s, you were more prone to being tried as a witch. So we've got an ageist problem now. Nobody wants to age. Well, it's not difficult to know that women don't like aging. Men can age gracefully. Women cannot and don't. So we obliterate our look and our image. It's all a vibration. And midwifery is a cult in itself. And I think that's why nobody picks it up, because it's deeper and darker than anybody realizes. And there's only 13 families that run this world. And we're part of that in that job.
Jeepers, yeah. Well, obviously I've spoken to you about my research, and my research says that this conspiracy, you know, to dehumanize the population, is 3,000 years old. So even in the, you know, 13, 14, 1500s, that conspiracy is still 2,500 years old back then. So it's all by design, but obviously people can't see that. You know, it's literally satanic, and people are just like, well, they can't see it because they're good, normal people. They don't understand how anybody else could actually be that evil, and what would their motivation be for it. But it's because they don't understand Satanism. But it sounds to me like this insidious cult, you know, has infiltrated midwifery as part of their motivation to see through their extremist religious prophecy of destroying humanity.
And Curtis Callenbach, he talks very openly about the Holy Trinity, the Holy Gospel, the Bible, whatever your take on that is. He talks very much about the kingdom of waters, the fertilization, the conception, but we don't talk about that. We talk about conception. We talk about first monthly period or last monthly period, whatever anybody wants to say. It doesn't matter. But we don't talk about that you are always 46 monozygotic, supreme monarchy being. From the moment that your sperm, your father's zygote, met your mother's egg. That's it. You were always 46. So when they talk about viability, they make you believe that your baby's only viable from 12 weeks in a legal fiction sense, because you go to the NHS at 12 weeks and have a scan and they go, yep, you're pregnant now. But what about the last 12 weeks? And that's what people are forgetting. They are always pregnant and they are always viable, and that baby is more divine than you ever realize. And there's a reason why they want to obliterate that.
And what would that be?
It's a global agenda.
Yeah, to dehumanize.
Yeah. And break the family. I mean, I really looked at this with my children. I've got 4 boys. All 3 of them have followed a same pattern. At around about 12, 13, they lay down fat stores and they look chubby. And then all of a sudden they shoot up. And then when they shoot up, they then change their sleep pattern. And instead of going to bed at 7 p.m. until 7 a.m., they start sleeping at 11 p.m. and they struggle to get up. Yeah. And all 3 of them have done the same pattern. So then what happens? Another year goes on and they can't sleep at 11 p.m. anymore, and they're starting to sleep at 2 and 3 a.m. No iPads, no, none of that. Their natural rhythm is in their masculine road, their ancestral print, whatever you want to call it. And they all have done the same thing, because no matter what, they weren't built for a school classroom 9 till 3. They were supposed to be awake at night and hunting and learning the night sky and learning animal noises and learning what would be out at that time of year and learning the moon, where the moon sits in terms of hunting. What moon is out in that era or that month is the moon of the sturgeon, of the fish, or of the deer, or the wolves would be, winter is coming, you're not going to have any food. That's why we need to harvest. And my boys have shown me that they don't even know that about themselves, but I can see it because all 3 of them have followed the same road, which makes me realize their ancestral print and their ancestral DNA proves to me that they're supposed to be out hunting, not in a classroom. And women birth from their vagina, they grow their baby, and their baby comes out of their portal. It is divine. What do we want to do now? We've got the trans ideology. We've got the trans movement. And now we've got normal birth ideology, that they want to eradicate it. It's an ideology.
They're trying to eradicate normal birthing?
Yep. Jeremy Hunt, last week, 10 days ago, wrote an article that normal birth ideology increases harm.
And so what are they now converted to?
Well, so my argument here is, so let's take a case, right? Okay. A woman comes in off the street and she's labouring. You can see she's labouring, she's in pain, her waters have ruptured, she's got some dripping blood between, or blood-stained waters between her legs. Yeah. You might then think, she's got some blood, I'm going to pop her on the monitor just to check her and her baby are well. Mm-hmm. You pop them on the monitor, you check the baby's well, you can see she's contracting, you can feel she's contracting, you can hear she's contracting. Mm. You need to visualize all of your 5 senses. You need to smell the room, because you can smell when someone's waters have gone. That's the role and the art of a midwife. It's an art. It's a vocation.
Yeah.
So this woman then presents as normal CTG, you take her off. That was back then before the guidelines changed, that if any blood stain, you would stay on the monitor. She would then go on and have a lovely, beautiful baby an hour later. Okay, 6 hours later, she's gone home. But because we're inducing so many women, and because we're intervening with almost half of the women now that are pregnant, if we've got 600,000 births, half of them are being intervened with, and 40% plus in certain parts of the country are being sectioned, having cesarean sections. Your litigation is at 67 billion since 2016. So maternity makes a lot of money because we know what those insurance claims mean, what they draw from that. So what we've got increased intervention. So now they're blaming normal birth ideology for the harm. Well, how can that be if under 60% of them are normal births? Do you see? It doesn't make logical sense. And you need to strip back every area rather than making these damning and dangerous accusations that normal birth is an ideology.
Oh my goodness, right. I see what you mean. Yeah, I had a friend of mine who gave birth, and she's very headstrong and determined in her points of view. And she was absolutely determined that she wanted a natural birth. She wanted to experience what it was like to give birth and to a baby and be a mother in the most natural sense. Mm-hmm. And she feels that was robbed of her, taken away from her, because when she was in hospital, they literally just said, "Oh, baby's coming, right? Need a C-section, just need to get it out." And she felt like she was just pushed into this. It was just like, right, we've got others to see. Need to get this baby out of you. There we go. C-section done. See you later. And she honestly feels
robbed.
She was robbed of an opportunity to
the amount of women that yearn and cry when they've never experienced a vaginal birth is more common than we realize. A bit like that yearning in teenage boys who don't want to go to bed at 10 o'clock at night because they want to go out and see the world at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
That is the same yearning that your body craves. Now, not everybody can have a cesarean section, and not everybody can have a normal birth. So I'm not saying that what you did was wrong. If you want to go in and have an elective cesarean section, that's you. What my argument is, when you've got someone who campaigns that their baby died as a result of poor failings and then the lack of intervention, that's an individual case. That doesn't mean that your story overshadows every other case in maternity.
And that's
because I've walked it.
Yeah.
I've walked it. I've seen women who need a cesarean section and we're really busy and they get delayed for 3 hours and they have a normal birth. But they were granted high risk that they needed a section. But because the system was so busy with emergencies and, you get a category of a section, category 1, category 2, category 3, cat 4. And if you get a cat 2, it's really, okay, well, we'll see what happens type thing, but we'll start getting you prepared to go round. A category 1 is we need to get you around now. But this does happen. And I think what's really sad is, I've had 4 births, so I can have an opinion on birth. Vaginal birth is by far the best birth you will have. But my birth was best for me. Your birth is best for you. However, if you're being drawn down a road that normal birth is an ideology, you've now got young girls believing that and not understanding that their labia and their vagina has a purpose. It's no different to your heart having its function. It's not an object. It's a reproductive system. And it's also a system of pleasure. And we're eradicating it. And that is very scary.
Yeah, jeepers. Well, one thing I'm really glad you told me actually about that feeling of what it's like as a mother to give birth, because I wasn't aware of that emotion or that sensation. I've seen it expressed on the faces of mothers when they do give birth, when they receive their baby. And again, what's your opinion on how they cut the umbilical cord, don't they?
Yeah, so again, it was not something we never really talked about it in uni. It was just, you cut the cord once it stops pulsing, normally within, as long as it's been a minute. They don't focus too much on, we didn't do a lecture on most things more than once. So, we did a lecture on diabetes for about 2 hours. Well, diabetes is a massive medical condition. It's a comorbidity, and it's really, really prevalent in pregnancy. And yet we did 2 hours on it. It's crazy. So all these little things, you have to go away and really start learning yourself, because all you're doing is, the reason why they're skimming over it is because it's not important. That's what your brain thinks. But the days that you do emergency training, which takes 6 weeks to train for, you've got to know this. Do you know what I mean?
They're literally just hiding knowledge from us.
And you don't question. Yes.
Gaslighting us into an alternative way of thinking that is unnatural.
Yes. And the cutting of the cord, I very rarely would do it unless it was an emergency, because the fathers normally always wanted to do it, or the mothers did it. But actually, what I know now with the cutting of the cord and its biblical connotations and what it means in the legal fiction world and the placental dead fiction world is absolutely enormous. So remember, I told you I didn't always want to be a midwife. I didn't wake up as a kid, whereas my friend Tess, being a midwife, and my friend Justine, who you've met as a nurse, they wanted to be that as a child.
Wow.
So they had that yearning and that calling, because the whisper of it called to them. I didn't have that. I gave birth, had that experience, and wanted to give that to women and families because it was so addictive. But now I'm not in the profession, and I've gone down the road of understanding everything about what's going on with the depopulation agenda and all of this. I was meant to be here to learn this.
Yeah.
So understanding the cutting of the cord and what that did to your legal fiction life, and what that did in a data capture world is where I really now fully understand how satanic this is, how dark this is. And I don't care what anybody thinks about that. I am here, and it's happened, and it's true, and I have uncovered that through networking and learning and unpicking all of that indoctrination.
Especially when you realise that the cult of child sacrifice that's over 3,000 years old is still alive and thriving today, but just hidden from us.
I mean, you can't even, your brain, during COVID, my brain didn't go to, that's a bioweapon that's killing people for depopulation agenda, a massive turbo cancer to kill, 6 billion people. My brain didn't go to that. Of course it didn't. But my brain did go, there's something not right here.
Yeah.
And that's what's so important, is I questioned it. I listened to it. It was only when I walked out, and then I obviously was called a baby killer, and then I was threatened, and all of that spurred me into, hang on a minute, I only left because I was trying to save women's lives and babies. How on earth has it gone from that to this? And it was because that was my calling. That was my whisper. You've got to just know and link into your own code, I suppose.
Yeah, and you being set up like that sounds like it was literally a system that they already had set up in terms of being prepared to deal with whistleblowers. They're just like, right, if ever, because they obviously know that there are whistleblowers that are going to come forward because they know what they're doing. So they were just like, right, when a whistleblower does come forward, this is what we're going to do to them. So it sounds to me like, when you were just like, how have I gone from wanting to deliver babies and save lives and look after people to suddenly being a baby killer in such a short space of time? It sounds to me like that protocol was already in place, and anybody who does what you do is going to suffer the same thing.
Oh, it was 8 weeks.
Oof.
It was 4 weeks until I was threatened, and then a further 5 weeks until the statement was made that I'd killed a baby. So I now know, with experience and understanding and digging, that 9 days before that baby died, I raised my first grievance on my safety in the workplace, and that if this isn't sorted, I could harm someone. And surrounding that was a load of my manager bullying me and not putting in reasonable adjustments. Even though the doctor had ordered reasonable adjustments, she just said no. And you can't do that when an expert has given you a reasonable adjustment. There's a law for that under equality and discrimination. So all of that was going on. But I didn't know then that potentially this could have been years later. It's like they had a crystal ball and they knew.
Yeah.
And they never expected me to come back and go to the High Court and start digging, because I took advice to let it go and just ignore it. But I couldn't. It was eating me up every day.
Good for you. Good for you. Yeah, and this is where the world needs Bitcoin.
Wow.
So
that was the next journey, wasn't it?
Probably, probably we're going for 45 minutes. So it's probably a good time to talk about how Bitcoin can actually fix this.
This journey, this next bit with you has been very enlightening and allowed me to question the digital agenda, the maternity digital transformation program, all of that. It was all part of a big agenda, and then go, well, what is happening with my data? Where's it going? Who's got it? And during my whistleblowing, I've obviously SAR'd many people, and I'm learning and have learnt with evidence that my data is shared, processed, accessed, and it daily. And I never find the trail or the trend or the system that shares it, almost like I want to see it as like there's a higher being of all our data floating around in a big mothership somewhere, and I can't get to that next level to work out where it is. But actually what I have realized is there's a lot of money in data sharing.
Well, also when you say there's a lot of money, that money that you refer to is actually currency that's printed by an entity from nothing that just simply wants our information for something and for some reason. There is a massive agenda here. Well, again, the religious extremism would just say the agenda is to enslave humanity, because that's what JFK warned about. In fact, that's what I think General Smedley Darlington Butler also warned about in terms of controlling and enslaving the population. They can't do that unless they've got all the information on us that we don't know about.
Yeah.
So
I think now when you look at your data in terms of your maternity data, that is the moment where you exist, you're born, you take a breath, and you are in the system where you've been born, which is why they don't want you to birth at home. So many people birth at home and do not register their baby's births. They are subject to social service involvement because they haven't registered the birth. Why? And people need to ask that question. Why would social services need to be involved? We didn't have birth records post 1500s. You were just born in a village and you were the baby of Village Hampton or the baby of the Clan MacDonald. You didn't have a surname. You were just if you read back over the books, it will say Jane of the Weaver, the father of the Weaver David. Do you know what I mean? That's how you identified people. Well, when you look at the all caps fiction and you're looking at the legal fiction and then putting into legal and lawful, that your data is captured into their computer systems. And I've got records in front of me now. I've got a birth notification. I've got a baby record. I've got a delivery summary and a birth register. Why do you need 4 of them? Where do they go? Why do you need them? What are they for? And nobody asks that question. I never asked that question. God, why do I need all this paperwork? Why? And you can't find out where it's gone and why.
And have you found out where it's gone and why?
I think through other people, the Realm of England and the Blue Ball, we figured out that the information goes up to the treasurer and your trust fund is made. Once you've got your birth registration NHS number and your hospital number, so you've got 2 different numbers, then they're able to draw upon you. But obviously, until you have the placenta time and date, you can't move on to print these records or submit the records, which now are not on paper form. They're on digital ID because we've just turned over in maternity to digital. So women used to walk, this is the one thing that really scares me. A pregnant woman would walk around with her notes. In those notes would be handwritten her name, her address, her allergies, her gestation, how many babies she's had, what types of delivery she's had, if she's had any problems medically, if she's got any allergies, what, you know, if I've said it, what blood group she's had, if she's had any transfusions, what her scans are like. And now we've removed that from them. And now they walk into the hospital with nothing but a small app. And then you've got to trail through the digital system with your fingerprint to read all of her notes. And it is brutal. And I've just been fed back from a colleague and she said it's made it worse. It's so dangerous.
Oh, my goodness.
So this is why you know, we have to be asking the question about how does BSV, Bitcoin, work alongside these types of, these records of information of mothers and babies, all of their blood group, all of their blood records, and how does that and what does that look like if we were to put everything on that blockchain?
Well, yeah, so any entries on the ledger is private to the individual that's uploaded them, because effectively the Bitcoin network is like having access to your own personal private supercomputer that is literally pay as you go. So you pay for the upload of data in a micropayment, and only you know that you've done it, and that is an immutable, time-stamped record of evidence that cannot be cracked, hacked, altered, changed, or deleted, and therefore it stands as truth, as time. So really, what you would need is your medical records uploaded by you, because your medical records would have been agreed between you and your general practitioner, probably. And then once you come to an agreement over what the result is or what the issue is, then that can be recorded as part of your medical history on the Bitcoin network. That is then private between you and your GP that nobody else would know about. But so long as you know where they are, you can access them and you can decide who you share them with.
Yeah. And that's the transparency. That's what I think women and families who are trying to get answers for their baby deaths, or midwives are trying to get answers for what's going on. We have to do an FOI over here, a SAR over here. It takes ages to get it back. Then they lie and they say they don't have it. And then someone sneakily gives it to you, which has happened to me. And I'm like, you've just lied. So it can't happen that way on that ledger.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And this is what I'm finding safer. I would much rather live that way with so for instance, when I type anything about a woman on the computer, I tell her what I'm writing. I leave it open. I've always been very transparent. When I'm writing a chronology, I would write a chronology of fact that might go to social services. Now, some women have never seen those reports and then they get presented and it's been a lie. But if you had a ledger where you could put it up and it's agreeable together, that's your digital footprint of truth.
Yeah.
And that's what I love, because we've got a huge issue, not just in maternity, but in social care, policing, that okay, give you an example. I had a young lad who called me right back in the summer and said, I'm really, really worried about my wife giving birth. I've seen the news. I'm petrified. What can I do? And when he got into the ward, there was a lady on there that was keeping everybody awake with her mobile phone on at night. And, you know, women are trying to labour. Well, they're not going to labour if they're lying next to someone they don't know and they can't sleep. So that's all set up by design as well. It's like being in a cell.
Right.
And he got quite upset and said, excuse me, can you turn your thing down? And then the midwife or nurse came over to him and said, we'd like you to leave. You've been rude to the patient next to you. And he said, all I asked her was to turn it down. But you're telling a pregnant woman who's also in a hospital when she doesn't want to be there. She's stressed. She doesn't have a partner next to her. She wanted to watch something to calm her down, and he's now taken that away from her. That's the simplicity of it. And I think as midwives, you don't need to overreact that situation. You need to calm everybody down and give everybody the space to be free about how they feel. So what they did was they removed the dad from the ward, and then they wrote lies in social care referrals, and he got suspended from his job.
Oh my God, that is outrageous.
So he was then not allowed to go to the birth. So he asked me to help him write an email. I helped him write an email, and he wrote in that email, I have been subjected to the news, to the horrendous articles that are coming out about baby and mummy deaths in hospitals all across the country, and yet I'm walking into one of these that's been named with my wife and child, and I'm not allowed to be upset. And then they put the child on a protection plan, or a child in need. That's my argument. So this Bitcoin, which is when you say the world needs Bitcoin, that is why I love this.
It sounds to me like they're also trying to emasculate men, particularly dads who are the protectors.
Yeah.
Like
if a dad says anything. Yeah. And I've seen midwives lie. You know, I have seen midwives overreact themselves. And you know, you've got to go into midwifery in a really safe, an equilibrium in yourself, a balance. You cannot go in if you are trauma triggered, you haven't dealt with your crap, because you are only going to be triggered by everything that's mirrored to you, which then means you're going to pass on more trauma, make trauma-based decisions, and not give these families the right birth that they deserve. That's what I believe now, because I wasn't true, which is why I won't go on and become a doula. I won't do it. I'm years from being ready from that after what I've gone through, and it's not fair on the women. So what they want to do is they want to eradicate the family. They want to break this couple down. And now the woman was mad at the husband for losing his rag. And he was like, I was trying to protect you. So they then started to get fractious with each other. And I was like, do not be divided. You must stand together. He didn't mean it. You didn't mean it, in trying to get them to sort of calm down together. But it was so sad. And I've seen colleagues do that myself. Overreact, over gossip, lie about what really did happen, because it came from their own place of trauma, not really from what he was doing, in a perspective of, you've just brought a guy into a hospital who's already voiced that he's petrified, and no one's shown him an ounce of empathy.
Yeah, that's where knowledge is. If somebody, basically, people are only ever scared of the unknown. When he's petrified, he's petrified because he doesn't know what's going to happen. He doesn't know what to expect. He doesn't know what to do. It's all new to him. Like this is where literally knowledge is power. When you understand and you're in control of the situation that you're in, and you can predict what's going to happen because you have experience and what somebody's told you, then there's no reason to be petrified or scared. And it seems they're purposely sort of making it this way to make people think that giving birth naturally is somehow the wrong way of doing it.
Absolutely. And back in the day when they said that in the 1940s, that the reason why we've got high child death rates or birth rates is because of all the diseases. So we've brought in the vaccine program, which came in the late 1940s, early 1950s. When you start thinking about that, well, who's always been in control of the statistics? So how do we know how many were really dying?
Yeah,
that's my argument now. Well, hold on a minute. They said that all these children were dying, but who owned the records? Who owned the platform to give you that data?
Yeah.
So really what happened was we had good sanitation. People weren't in workhouses anymore. Electricity was better. Hygiene was better. Food was better. Education was better. And that's why everybody got better, not because of your vaccine program. So you've used that variable to manipulate people again.
Yeah.
And that's my argument. So now I can't believe anything they tell me, because it's all from one place of, one hierarchy of evidence. And we've seen that with the COVID statistics.
Absolutely. Or lack of them.
Yeah. None of them. None of them. Yeah. So women have lost touch. They've forgotten what their body is supposed to do. They've forgotten the whisper. Not all. There are amazing advocates out there. There are amazing birth keepers and doulas and, birth messengers that are doing great work. But the problem lies here. Women hand over their control and they don't question. And someone put up a post the other day, and it really, really profoundly made me think. Women Google and research prams, buggies, walkie-talkies, bikes, dummies, milk, but they do not look at vaccines and medication in labour and after.
Of course. No way.
So it's on them. It's the women that will change this, and their children, not the midwifery practice. That will give you the voice and it will piece together the puzzle, but it won't make the change.
Gee, well, I think if people are aware of their agenda, then they're going to be interested in what's being hidden from them. Whereas at the moment, people are still too trusting in mainstream media and what the government says.
Correct. And you know, I think my colleagues, knowing them as I do, and knowing where I've been in that situation, and then, you know, I remember a midwife left and she did something and I judged her straight away and went, oh, she needs to leave the profession. I did. I judged her. I was like, she needs to leave. How dare you behave like that? What an arsehole. I was an absolute shit. Now I'm like, holy hell, she was right. And that's where some of my colleagues are now looking at me and going, I judged you and I'm actually really sorry. You know, I received a phone call from someone after WTF saying, I judged you and I'm really sorry. And I was like, do you know what? Thanks so much. Thanks for that. Appreciate that a lot. But I don't do this for that reason. But these midwives also need to be questioning the evidence, because it's a guideline. And I never saw it as that. It's a guideline. You can say no if that woman says no, because it's a guideline. But if you don't go by the guideline and something happens, you will be targeted. And that's the other problem. So I might say, for this particular woman, this guideline doesn't match her and it doesn't match her birth plan. But I'm not allowed to give that opinion, because as a midwife, you have to just give the evidence. And that's where it all gets messy and it slips up and you're in a web before you know it. Because the women will grass on you. If you tell a woman that a vaccine is really bad, she'll go and tell her doctor. Oh, but the midwife told me. And she'll name you. They do that. So there's a real history of women turning on each other, which is very much highlighted across all of our time on earth, that women are quite vicious to each other.
Right. Yeah, that's, again, divide and conquer.
Absolutely.
Dividing opinion.
Yeah. So it's very multifaceted, this topic. That's why someone says, you know, Liam Tufts asked me the other day, when I went on this podcast, what is the answer? I couldn't even tell you that. The first thing I would say is we need to get the data away from them. That needs to happen first, because then you're in control of what happens to your data and what happens to you, and you stop registering the birth.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, on that note, I'll just describe to the listeners what the Bitcoin network is for, because people just obviously seem to think that it's just about, this digital thing, this digital asset, and number go up. It's not actually about that. What it's about is that you cannot have a digital network that doesn't have any central point of authority or control if it's not economically competitive. Because if it's not economically competitive, then it's centrally controlled, then that's the only way it can operate. So in order for a network to not have any central point of authority or control, and for people to be able to use it for their own personal medical records, it has to be a network that is operated by having multiple operations running it that are incentivized to do so via economics. So what it is an economically competitive, distributed network with a chain of digital signatures that proves provenance of data. So whenever somebody uploads a bit of data, a digital signature is on it to prove who it was that did it, and it goes on to a timestamp server that doesn't have any central point of authority or control and doesn't have any single central point of failure. That's literally the entire point of this. And when you have a network that doesn't have any central point of failure and can't be turned off, that means the truth can't be deleted. The truth can't be hidden. It can't be lost, because a lie is obviously a derivative of the truth. It's the truth that comes first. So if you can actually record the truth on a network, on a timestamp server that nobody can manipulate, well, that's what they don't want. And that's what Bitcoin is all about. So you would buy Bitcoin to use the network. And all they've done is, because this is, because being able to lie seems to be the main part of their agenda, because that's how they divide and conquer, through lies and mis and disinformation. They want to get rid of Bitcoin. So they've subverted the network, created their own alternative protocol, and created this shitcoin market full of, $3 or $4 trillion worth of digital absolute pieces of nonsense, and use their skills of lying and deception and misinformation to spin narratives on what all these different things are for, when in actual fact, all they are is identical pieces of shit that they make different stories up on about. And it's all to just simply hide what Bitcoin is truly about. And that's literally it.
So to give that some perspective for anyone that's listening that does not understand anything that you've just said, if I give you two different scenarios and you can tell me what that would be regarding what you've said. So for instance, if I go into hospital and I am a Bitcoin user, I have a Bitcoin, for instance, and I wanted to upload anything about my care, I can, and it's ledger locked, it can't be changed, and you've got your own data. They simultaneously could be using their own system, which they will do, and you can't access it to start with. The other alternative is, recently in the Nottingham inquiry into the failings of maternity care that have thousands of babies have died and harmed, it's horrific. The police have deleted files regarding some baby and mother deaths and harm. Now, what people need to understand is that they can do that whenever they want, because they own that server, they own that data. You don't own it, they do. Although it's your data and you can access it through a SAR, they're using it in any way, shape or form and can alter, delete and get rid of it. But if you were on the Bitcoin where you're talking about and what you're coming from, that wouldn't be able to happen. It would be there forever.
Absolutely.
And that's what that's where my brain goes to, is this is the problem, because before digital, people would have a trial by jury in your kirk, your village, wherever you are. There would be witnesses of a jury from either side. You would pick your jury of peers and the court would pick their jury of peers, and there would be a voting system. But you would give your evidence pretty much within 2 days and you would have an outcome within 2 days. Now, what we've done is we've created a system that the judiciary is corrupt, because if they're going to corrupt the financial system, they need the judges to keep the financial system at bay from the public, from the people. So the judiciary system is flawed because it doesn't give you justice for what is needed against the corporations where it's most highly prevalent of data breach and harm. So these families think or believe that that they might get justice. Well, it gets deleted or altered, but also they hide behind the GDPR law and they hide behind the data protection law, which I believe they invented so we wouldn't find out about them. But if you remove all of that and go back to our common law of people, our Magna Carta law, the original articles that have never been rebutted or repealed, they are the people's right. So you could have your own trial by jury of your village for anybody, and it cannot be altered or deleted, or it's there. This is the mindset people need to get their head through.
And again, this is what they're trying to take away from us and eradicate from us, which is our personal rights and freedoms.
Yep. And people don't know it. So they're going into the lion's den. They're asking the very people who are funded to look at where the money comes from for these people. It all leads to one trail. If they're funded by them, they're never going to give you justice. They might, I always think they're a bit of a wolf in a sheep's clothing. But there's a reason why they drag you for so long through their system of judiciary, because once you get past a certain stage, you can't go for criminal and you won't get justice, because what will happen is the next MP comes on and the whole case gets dropped, because you're going to the very people who are funded by the Bar Guild.
Yeah.
And this is what people don't get. It's really hard to get my voice around that on platforms unlike yours, because you get it.
So have you, when we spoke earlier, you said that you almost like exhausted all of your avenues of whistle blowing, and you said that you sort of came across this wall of resistance. And again, I would suggest that's due to everybody having a bank account, nobody wanting to be debanked, and ultimately their power stems from the ability to take someone's bank account off them. Which is what they've done to politicians who weren't towing the narrative. They did that to Nigel Farage, they did that to Andrew Bridgen, and I think other people feel the same way. They're just like, well, hold on a minute, I can get deplatformed, I can be demonetized, and they can take my bank account off me. And people are concerned about, rightly, putting a roof over their head and being able to put food on the table.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even think about those things to start with. It was like the integrity just took over and I just didn't need to do much. It just happened. But I wrote to 635 MPs in February of 2024, before obviously Keir Starmer was in. Keir Starmer did respond. And he said, I'd like to connect you with Ellie Robinson, our Director of Endorsements, who's no longer in position, for her to support you, which she did. Now, what was interesting, I decided not to go near any of the leaders in maternity. I didn't trust them. When I contacted the MPs and a Baroness of Tavistock, Kate Brimpworth, who is the chief midwife of NHS England, happened to just drop into my private Gmail inbox asking for a meeting. Now, I hadn't contacted her because I don't trust her. I knew it. I didn't need to even think about her. My body just knew, don't go near them. But my body knew I had to exhaust through all the channels for me to tick the boxes that I've done everything I possibly can and I've left no stone unturned. So when she contacted me, we had a Zoom, I told her 5 of the biggest stories that I had, unlawful arrests of people who had been told that they'd killed their baby, loads of different things. And she didn't really do anything and she went away. Now, when I got threatened, I then wrote to her and said, I've been threatened. And she said, you need to go to the police. It didn't alarm her. That was what was very interesting, is that whenever I tell someone that a director at my hospital said I go missing, I always watch their reaction. And my local MP, Rebecca Smith, who I met recently, she's Conservative. She was very pleasant. But when I told her, she didn't seem to look shocked. Her assistant, who was typing the minutes, stopped typing and looked at me. And I went, that's the reaction I was looking for. Because it's all too common, I believe, that when they hear these things. And that's when I realized this is their whistleblowing technique is like a plan of action. They know what to do to disarm you. I think there's 24 ways to disarm a whistleblower or something like that. So I'd done all of that. And then I started to realize, well, if the chief midwife isn't going to act, then no one will beneath her. So I wrote to my local MP, Luke Pollard. Oh, I loathe that man. I loathe his face. Can't look at him. I mean, it's a bit like Keir Starmer. I loathe him. I loathe Jeremy Hunt. I can't bear them. And I wrote to him, and my email was really simple. And it said, I've left this hospital not because I'm not resilient, because this is crimes against humanity, criminal negligence, and manslaughter. And he said, you're not in my constituent. Well, some of the women are, and the families, and he didn't want to act. And Gary Streeter, who was retiring at that time, he didn't even reply. So nobody took any action with what I was saying. And to this day, Andrew Bridgen is probably the only one who has turned up to any of a podcast or supported with any advice that I've asked for. And Kate Shemirani, John O'Looney, those sorts of people, Dave Cartland, have been amazing. But actually finding someone that will lead on it is non-existent. The bereaved parents get the support, the midwives do not. Because you are, as Robin Hood talks about in The Realm of England, you are effectively a officer of the Bar Guild when you work for these corporations. You're contracted with them. You are under contract because that's where your money comes from. That's where the lead of this whole world is. And they don't want you anywhere near them.
Because they have a satanic agenda.
Correct. Which is why this is a grassroots. It has to be grassroots, and it has to come from the next generation of women who want to birth. Now, I think these younger generation are a little bit more switched on. They're a lot more aware of the satanic, my son, they all knew about the child sex trafficking and the Epstein files long before I did. They really, they knew. And I think TikTok does a lot of that. And I don't really use TikTok. I can't stand the platform. But I think the place that we are at is education. But how on earth do I ripple that out? I mean, I've done enough. I started with 35 followers on X. I got called a baby killer. I was never going to compete with their numbers. And I came back 11 months later, and right up until today, I'm just shy of 100,000 followers on all platforms.
Wow, amazing.
And I just keep drip, 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 drip. And hopefully it hits the right people and we move forward. But I don't have an answer. But this answer is maybe the start of the divide.
Absolutely. Well, I would
away
say,
from them.
What we need to do is revert back to a common money. If we have a true common money that doesn't have any central point of authority or control, that no one controls, literally that means that we can all be self-financing.
Yeah.
And that means that we don't have to worry about being paid or somebody biting the hand that feeds you, because now there isn't going to be a hand that feeds you, because we're using a common money that appreciates in value rather than being inflated and just simply being paid every month, and therefore goes down in value forever, which is inflation, which effectively causes all the issues in society, which is people looking out for themselves rather than for one another.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm at that place ready for that. My children are educated differently. Hopefully they make the right decisions in their lives, but then they might marry someone that completely disagrees with everything they've been taught, and they have to go down that road. That's where I don't judge. That's your journey, son. You go. And when you're ready, you'll ask a question. And, my friend is a midwife, and she said, you've thrown a pebble, you've created a ripple.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. You've just got to let that ripple out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say this is your journey has been absolutely phenomenal. And I would say it's kind of like one branch of what they're doing, because there are so many things in society that they're destroying. Literally, they're destroying neighborhoods, they're destroying industries. Yeah, they're polluting rivers, they're poisoning the sky, they're, polluting the earth. Yeah,
and what have they removed? They removed skill. And if you if you have nothing to barter with, all you've got left is skill. And if you don't have a skill, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Because you can't feed yourself.
Yep.
And that's what they want. They want to eradicate your skills.
Yeah.
So people need to be going back. Exactly. So people need to be picking up that needle and thread and learning how to actually do upholstery, and people need to know how to grow some veg, and they need to know how to change a tire, or they might need to know how to build a hut.
Yeah.
Or what wood is safer for you to live for a winter. All of these things have come to the forefront of my thinking now. That their agenda, people believe, in their, I look around my street and only one of them I like. That's the truth. My neighbour across the road is an absolute stuck-up mare. You know, she looks down her nose at me because I'm unemployed. You know, I've got rowdy kids. We've got 4 boys. You know, they're always messing around and just really looks down her nose at me. And I think, you have no idea what's coming.
Yeah.
You will not be prepared for what is coming, because all you're doing is working and paying into your pension and taking your 3 holidays a year, painting your house grey, and just living this life of sadness. You don't look happy. She doesn't look well. And, you know, she banged on my door the other day and I was like, hello. And she just went, is that your car? And I was like, hello, nice to see you. And what I'm realizing is nobody's really happy. Like, they're all miserable because they don't want to question why they're miserable and they don't want to truly look in the mirror.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like going, right, what's next? It's tiring, but I do it.
You know, that's actually how you get out of depression. You think, right, what am I going to do? Same similar question. What's next?
Yep.
You know?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
This is probably why you've got into Bitcoin, because you're following that path. It's like, right, what is next? I've exhausted the avenue of politicians. I've exhausted the avenue of lawyers. Nobody seems to want to talk, and yet the reason they don't want to talk is because they're being financed by someone or something. So where are they getting their financing from? Hold on a minute. You mean they're printing that shit from nothing and just dishing it out? You know, they've got the power of currency creation. Well, if you can create something from nothing and you can then put interest on it, so you're charging interest on something that you never had initially, which is usury, and then because they're so economically powerful, they can stop you from doing what they're doing. If you want to copy their model, they're like, oh no, we can do this, but you can't.
Yeah.
You know, that in itself is unlawful. Statutes of Monopoly 1623. Nobody can have a monopoly over anything. There is no way that someone can do something that nobody else can, in the same way that you can't license a crime. You can't say, oh yeah, well, I'm licensed to commit this crime, so that's fine. No, a crime is a crime, end of.
Yeah. And there has to be a victim in that crime. And people think, oh, I've committed a crime with speeding. Well, you were speeding, but, you know, was there a victim? And this is where people's mindset is stuck in. And, you know, I think you're never going to wake everybody, but the people that are meant to wake will wake and be on that journey with you. But actually, I've realized I've always been a bit of a loner, not in a bad way. Like, I feel loved, but I've never been like part of a group, you know, like girlfriends grow up together. They're all on hen dos together. They're bridesmaids for each other. I've never had that. And I don't want it, to be honest. But I'm quite comfortable and I go, well, oh yeah, I never had that. But it doesn't make me go into a place of, oh, I never had that. That's really sad. I was never meant to be there. Because I would have been surrounded with, you know, willies on a hen do, which is my worst nightmare. Or, you know, every year we have a pumpkin party. I can't bear anything like that. You know, I didn't have baby showers. I didn't have gender reveals. I wasn't like that, and I'm not like that. And I'm quite late to the party. I didn't know what Game of Thrones was until last year, and I watched it. I've only just started watching Star Wars. I'm now interested in Star Trek.
Wow.
I'm starting to look at different things, whereas, you know, I've never watched Love Island. I don't watch anything like that. So I never quite fitted in with a lot of these people. So, you know, someone was talking about a celebrity. I was like, who? And they were like, what, you don't know who that is? I was like, no, I don't. I'll tell you who I absolutely, and what I love the most is watching an athlete work so hard and winning a gold medal or winning a silver or a bronze or winning whatever in that race for them. I love the Olympics. I don't like what the Olympics represented at the last Olympics, obviously. But those runners, they don't know because they took those vaccines and died.
Yeah.
But that's where my heart is at now. And obviously watching all these people on stages and talking about their stories, I'm like sucking it all up like a sponge.
Yeah, I've had to go back and do the same. There were things that I wasn't really interested in previously, whereas now I'm just like, whoa, hold on a minute. I need to, well, the Bible for one. I was not religious in any way. I was anti-religion. Well, I still am in a way, but that's religion is more in the social control kind of way. But the Bible, like, whoa, that is now a completely different kettle of fish to me.
Yep.
Especially when you go back and read in this whole conspiracy starts from the book of Samuel, and then that led me on to the book of Daniel, which is a prophecy about the financial system that we're in, and the reason as to why they want to create the European Union, because it goes against the word of God. It's just like, what is going on here? There is a far bigger picture at play that I never knew about, that I still don't quite fully understand. But there is something at play here where someone has had the ability to predict the future or mold the future. And as they say, if you can control history, you can mold your future. And this is what they want. They want to hide our history from us. So what has happened in the past? What do they want in the future? And again, this is what brought me back to economics, because all legal and political influence stem from economic power. So then it's just like, okay, so what's money? And then you realize money has to be a commodity. What's a commodity? And then, right, so you can actually commoditize digital data. That's amazing, through the Bitcoin protocol. So this is how we fix it. This is what it all comes down to. Literally, the moment we start using Bitcoin for everything as a financial instrument, as a money, as a way of recording everything that we need to on a immutable timestamp server, that means the evidence can't be lost and the truth will be revealed.
Yep.
That's what it's all about.
And that is why people haven't put the jigsaw together, that when they go into a hospital and something happens to them, everything is in blocks of its own. So you'll go into A&E and they'll do X, Y, and Z, or they'll do up to A, B, C, D, E, and then you'll go on to the next bit of the hospital, which will be F, G, H, I, J. And each department has a weaving of policy and guidelines and SOPs and staff and skill. And then but all you remember is I went into hospital and I had my appendix out, but then I ended up with sepsis, and now I've been jabbed and I've got some blood that is infected.
Yeah.
All you want to find out is, how did that happen and why was I not aware? But what you've got to do is, people don't realize you've got to weave in every department and everything, and each person's got to take years. It's built purposefully so you don't work it out and can't work it out because you're energetically drained fighting.
Right. Yes.
That's why the system is so multifaceted on purpose. So when you've got that added in with social care and then the policing, or it's all interconnected, but it's all in its own corporation stance individually. And people don't understand that. So, for instance, someone might call me a baby killer from what they've read in one thing, where I'm not named, I'm not documented on anything, but their interpretation of it is what they've interpreted. But if they actually were able to see what happened that day, that night, who was involved, they wouldn't say that.
Absolutely.
They certainly wouldn't say that, because they haven't understood that out here, you can't possibly understand what's going on in there.
Yeah, and the only people who do know what's going on in there are those who control it. They've designed it to be like this on purpose.
Exactly. And they've become too greedy, as you gave me the most amazing education in history on this, and I loved it. I soaked it. I think I wrote like 100 pages, didn't I? And I actually, learning it has made me realize and understand that because they've printed so much money and they've abused it, everything at once is falling. So, my friend said to me yesterday, why is it all happening at once? And I said, well, if it's controlled by one entity, it will fall all at once. It's no different that if you've got 10 children by one mother and the mother dies, every child will be impacted.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is no different to what's happening in the fact that they've got so greedy, so satanic, have sped up their abuse, that it's all falling, people are waking up, and every corporation, schooling, policing, education, judiciary, banking, it's all falling and crumbling, and it's burning to the ground.
We've got a long road ahead of us. This is why I'm so keen to educate on Bitcoin, because those who are on Bitcoin are ahead of the game, and it's those people that, well, the people who have to be ahead are the ones who know the truth and know what's going on, because they're the ones who can then do something about it, which is us.
Correct. Yeah. And it's hard to, I mean, how long has it taken me to get to this place? What, 3-4 months?
That's extremely quick.
Is it?
Yeah, it took me years to really get to grips with what was going on.
Well, no, okay. So I understand miners and blockchain, but all the bits in the middle that you all talk about, I am nowhere near any of that. I'm like right at the bottom of the novice pile. But when you relate it to your data and your experience and the fact you want it to be safe and secure and transparent and not deleted in any way for your truth and your sovereignty, if you can get to grips with that, I'm telling you now, you would not hand everything over to those hospitals.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you get someone knocking on your door with an accusation, you know, it's your word against theirs. And I tell you who's going to win at the moment. It's whoever's got the most economic power backing them. Because anybody who turns on them is going to suffer the same fate. So people go along with whoever it is that's, you know, got the currency or the economic power behind them. Whereas suddenly, if those who have got the economic power are the ones holding Bitcoin, and not only do they have economic power, but they've got the permanence of truth on their side, on you know, records that can't be deleted, then suddenly those who are knocking on your door, approaching you with a lie, you can rebut them straight away and put them on the back foot, because that's malfeasance in public office. You're lying.
Correct.
We've caught you.
Yeah.
And you're lying.
And that's when eventually
you're lying to cover your own criminal activity and hidden agenda.
Yeah, which is treason.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's where people need to understand is that you chose your birth and your experience and your life experiences. We need to stop this blame culture. I chose my birth, I chose my career, I chose my marriage, I chose my divorce, and I chose to be here today. If people can get into that mindset and start putting the mirror back to them and saying, well, I chose it, you might start going down a different road of education, which will enable you to start questioning the things that you did. That system merely might offer you care as the only centralized system we have, but you still chose it. And that is the journey that people need to go on. And that is the true sovereign journey and the true healing journey, because it's the truth. You got in your car and you drove to that place, or you were taken there. But I didn't know, but you still did it. And I know that's a really hard concept to get your head around, but see, when you start practicing that, your whole life is a lot better and a lot easier. It's different, and you go down a different road. Because I'm going to ask you, Tosh, would you change where you are today and go back where you were before?
No, I can't.
You can't.
I just couldn't.
You can't. It's not possible. I don't know many people that they might have exhausted themselves and they want a quiet life, but I don't know many people that have woken up and stood in their true sovereign truth that you don't go back. It's not possible.
Yeah, I mean, they always say hindsight is a wonderful thing, you know, but you need insight to reveal hindsight to discover foresight, really.
Yeah.
That's what's needed. And on that note, we've actually been chatting for 1 hour, 30 minutes.
Amazing.
Yeah, this has been absolutely phenomenal. It's probably about time we wrap it up. We can always do a part 2 and come back, which I'm sure we will, because there's going to be lots of developments in the future, because things need to change, as you've just rightly revealed on this chat that we've had. So any concluding comments that you'd like to make?
Just that we need to start really questioning everything and taking a moment to reflect, like you've just said, with the insight, hindsight, foresight,
Yep.
all of that, and collaborating agenda. Turn off the telly, turn off all of the outside world, and silence your mind in your space, and you'll have the answer, and it will be your road, which is why everybody does everything in their own time. But that's where we need to go from.
Yeah, everybody's on their journey, and those people who listen to this, well, this is going to be part of their journey. This might be their wake up message. Who knows?
Absolutely.
You know, like
100%.
You said, ripples in the water, like the butterfly effect, really. And I would say at the moment, every little helps, and every little networking and coming together and sharing the information that we've got and whistleblowing like you did is going to be absolutely essential to discovering the truth, to stop this satanic one world agenda, one world government that this satanic cult want to bring in, so they can get away with their child sacrifice and carry on their perverted religious practices, basically. So
absolutely.
It's really us versus them. It's those who seek the truth versus those who want to pervert the truth and just lie.
Yeah,
that's what it is. Whew.
Thank you so much.
This has been absolutely amazing, Vic. So stay on the line, but we'll just wrap up the show and then we'll have a chat in a bit. So everybody who's listening, I hope you've enjoyed it. And as ever, be aware, take care, stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the next one.
The king still has one more move.